chilling, and the kids, they are so bored. Um, we usually like to go out, stuff like that. So I've been teaching them how to cook dough and all that good stuff. Um, Taught them how to make a different type of ravioli. Ravioli, it ain't that complicated. Major part is you make your dough, you make your filling, and you got your ravioli, so you're good. But yeah, I've been teaching them how to. And by the way, the kids, I have a 1 year old and a 2 year old, and yeah, just teaching them how to work with flour, work with their hands. Um, and boy, I mean, working with the dough yesterday was fun. We've been doing that all day yesterday. I taught them how to make biscuits. I taught them how to make pizza crust. Taught them how to make ravioli. And don't mess with that pop bubble. What else did I teach them how to make? Oh, a roux for like gravy, right? Like, all the time, religious texts and, the Bible particular, that's what religious text we primarily study from in this house is they always talk about bread. Prayers, they always talk about your daily bread. And the crazy thing about the diets these days, they say stay away from bread, which is crazy to me because I'm like, bread is made of like flour, um, just regular all-purpose meal. You don't really need nothing fancy. I know it's different types of flour out there. You got self-rising flour, you got whole wheat flour, bread flour, which used to be one of my favorites. Um, but the crazy thing about diet is that the main diet, just about everybody eats bread, and I should probably do like a video on nutrients that you can get from um, bread that you can't get from anything else, because it really is a an essential part of your eating or whatever. But yeah, that's something that I've been discussing with my kids. Usually we'll be out and discovering the neighborhood, meeting neighbors and stuff like that. Um, and I'm starting to learn that it's not really common for people to just go outside and just meet people. I've met some neighbors that they've been here for decades before we moved in, and they didn't know anybody, which I thought that was crazy. But just about everybody in the neighborhood know me though. We have a little wagon. I'll push the kids around the neighborhood, and we just go sightseeing and we go say hey to everybody. And people start greeting me before I greeted them, which was crazy because like there's a grocery store down the street, there's a candy shop up the opposite way. They just opened a what you call it? Not Korean. Oh my goodness, why did I do that? Thai food. I don't really like Thai food, but yeah, they just opened a Thai food place down the street. And like Google Maps, some of the stuff is so new that Google Maps didn't even update it yet. So, that was one thing we realized during the pandemic. But well, don't do that. That was one of the things that I realized during the pandemic. A lot of the restaurants that used to be here that was on Google Maps, it wasn't on there because a lot of places were going out of business, and then there were other business put in their places or whatever. So yeah, but I wanted to say like talk about something crazy. I've been really sitting on this subject of black fatigue for the last couple of days. I'm finally off of that statue. Not really, but it's in the back of my mind. But anyway, I've been really leaning on this subject of black fatigue, and one of the reasons why I lean on it is because I feel like I'm gonna try to pull this word off. I am an anomaly. Like I am an outlier. Who I am is very uncommon. And I remember growing up, and I was I remember my mom first, she sent me to let me get that. She first sent me to an all-white school because she was under the impression that if you go to a white school, you'll be more successful in life. Now, my mom, she was born in the 60s, and she was raised by her grandmother, who was born in the 19-teens. So, with that being said, I can understand where she was coming from with that, because, of course, somebody who was born, a black person in particular, that was born in the early 1900s, raising a black person who was who was born in the 1960s, I understand the mindset. Because during those times, there were laws put in place, and there were things that my foreparents went through that was connected directly to them being black. A lot of discrimination and a lot of crimes committed against them. What lead them to believe if you were white, you were better off, right? I quickly noticed when I went to elementary school that most black kids didn't have that kind of history. They didn't have that kind of attachment. And what I mean is, one of the number one things I used to get bullied for was the fact that my parents were married, which to a lot of people outside of the black community that I've told that to, there's like, that's weird. Why would black kids, single you out because your parents were married? And it was mainly because, their parents weren't married. A lot of them, they didn't know their fathers, right? So that was number one. The fact that I used to walk around going, my daddy this and my daddy that, as a black person, that was weird to a lot of black people. And then on top of that, my mom and my dad were married. So that was also a weird thing. And I didn't realize how much of an outlier that I was. And you would think, especially like with these churchy people or whatnot, that this was like the standard, I remember a while ago I reacted to a clip. This girl who had a baby out of wedlock, the church made her stand out in front of everybody and apologize for having a child out of wedlock. So here I am, a black child who's a product of marriage, and I'm going to school with kids, black kids, that are literally making fun of me, literally bullying me because my parents are married. Oftentimes I've been teased for talking white, for thinking that I'm better than people and all this other stuff. And I didn't quite realize that me just being me was such an insult to people. Well, to these kids, unfortunately. And so, with that being said, this whole subject of like black fatigue and everything, like for me, it was like being black was equated with being anything bad in society. And of course, I wasn't raised in an environment where, the influences of media governed anything about my existence. This is what I mean. I'm gonna unpack that. So I wasn't allowed to dress the way that the other girls at my school dressed. So, both my parents, you had to walk past them in the living room before you went outside. I mean, my parents, they were present, So it was like, I remember one time I wore a shirt. It was like one of my favorite shirts. And this is like around time that I was hitting puberty. And I really, really loved this shirt. And I was growing out of it, but my mom, she was like, oh, it's her favorite shirt. Let her keep wearing it, right? So I kept wearing the shirt, and then all of a sudden I started getting to that training bra age. I started getting some boobs on me. And my mom would make little comments like, hey, aren't you ready to stop wearing that shirt? Aren't you kind of getting to a point where you're ready to retire that shirt? And I used to tell my mom, nah, this is my favorite shirt. I can still fit it. My stomach ain't showing, so shouldn't be a big deal, right? And my mom, she was such a nice lady, man. She just wanted me to be happy. So she was just like, okay, well, if that's what you want to do, right? But she always had this rule. I couldn't go to social events, and I couldn't go to school with that shirt on, right? Okay, fine. I was like, yeah, that's cool. Well, one day my stepdad, he's off work. And, I go walking through the house and I'm on my way out the door and my stepdad stops me. He's like, whoa, what are you doing? And I'm just like, oh, I'm walking. I'm about to go outside. He was not in that shirt. And he was like, you need to change your shirt. So I get upset. I go back to my room and I'm like, who is he to tell me to change my shirt? My mama said I could wear my shirt. I'm not going to a social event. That was how my mind was just going off. So I'm getting upset. I go change my shirt. I go outside and I go to play with some of the other kids. And I go venting to my friends. And I go, I can't wear my own shirt. Stepdad won't let me wear my shirt. And immediately I started getting all these opinions, which was like, he ain't your daddy. He can't tell you what to wear. And that, I never thought of that. But my response was, oh, yeah, well, see, my biological father is deceased. And so that's why I have a stepdad. Immediately, I lost the room. Like, my friends immediately took that as me jabbing at the fact that they didn't have a dad. The conversation started becoming, what you trying to say, what you trying to say. And I'm like, well, me not knowing. Well, if your daddy died, then your mama, there still needs to be a head of household. This is how I didn't know. I was sheltered. And so if you ain't got no head of household, your household is pretty much a chicken with a head chopped off, right? And so, like, it only makes sense for me to have a stepdad because my mom's a grown woman and she's raising children and she needs a man in the house to provide for the house. And I was just talking. Did not know how out of touch I was. Had no clue. So then I was like, that conversation went weird. Went to another group of friends. Oh, yeah, I thought you was wearing your, favorite shirt today. Yeah, I can't wear it because my stepdad told me. So now I'm like trying to be careful about my wording because I just ticked off this other group of kids. So I'm like, yeah, oh, you going to let him tell you what to do. Again, it threw me off. Oh, you going to let him tell you what to do. And I'm like, yeah, because he's my parent. Like, he's a grown man. He's in charge. Like, what am I missing here? And they were like, what'd your mama say? I said, oh, my mom said, as long as I don't go to social events, I could wear a shirt. And they were like, well, didn't your mama tell you could do it? So then, maybe you need to go to your mom and talk to her. I took their advice because I was still sore about my shirt. I come back in the house and I go to my room. My shirt is not in my room anymore. I look in my drawer. It's not in my drawer. I look at my dirty clothes hamper. It's not in my hamper. My shirt is completely gone. My dad, he took off. He was gone, probably running some errands, probably out with his friends. It was his day off, whatever. My mom called me to her room, and her room is like in the back of the house. So I go to the back of the house, and my mom's like, hey, you had a little spat about your shirt earlier. And I'm like, yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because I went in my room, couldn't find my shirt. And she was like, well, see, now she was going to talk to me about going from being a child to becoming a woman. And she was like, there's a certain way you have to present yourself as a woman. Because all I knew up until this point was during social events, depending on that event, you had to dress a certain way. So if you go to church, you dress differently than if you're going to school, than if you're going out to dinner with the family, so on and so forth, which that was elementary to me. I understood that. I didn't have a problem with that. But this whole thing of looking like a woman, I was like, I'm still a kid, is what I kept telling my mom. Like, I'm a kid, so why would anybody be looking at me like I'm a woman? That's just weird. And my mom was like, well, when you hit puberty, your body's going to change. You can't wear the same stuff you used to wear. And I still wasn't catching it. So she was like, that shirt that you have on, your favorite shirt, you might like that shirt, but you're at an age where you cannot wear that shirt because it's not made for young ladies. It's made for little girls. I just thought she was crazy. I thought she was crazy. I listened to her. She lectured me. She went on and on. And I just wasn't going for it. My stepdad came home later on that day, and he called me into the living room. We sat down, we talked. He apologized to me because he felt like the way that he came at me about my shirt, you know, he didn't mean to be mean to me. I was always a very sensitive kid. You know, I'd cry in a heartbeat, so it'd take nothing from me. His whole thing was he did not want to come off like he was being mean. He was like, it's just, you know, boys and men look at women a certain way. And now you're getting to that age where you're not looked at like you don't know better. Like, and even if people did give you the benefit of the doubt, you got parents here who care about how you present yourself. And, you know, I talked to him about my friends and stuff, and he was like, yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Your friends, they wear anything. And that brings me to another thing. You're going to have to change your friends. So I'm sitting here in my feelings because I'm like, you already told me I can't wear my favorite shirt. Now you going to tell me who I can be friends with? And my mom, she never touched on this. And she felt like, boo-boo, don't do that. Boo-boo, don't mess with that. Boo-boo, you good? Okay, we cool. Anyway, sorry, son in the background messing with stuff. Anytime I'm on the phone, he has a field day. And for the most part, I let him have a field day. But anyway, I felt some type of way because I was like, dang, I thought he was just going to apologize about my shirt and leave it at that. No, this man is going to now talk to me about my friends. And it never crossed my mind that he would be like, yeah, that shirt and them people. And I went back to my mom. Because now I'm like, dang, I thought you was going to apologize about the shirt. You know, I told my mom, I was like, you know, it's one thing if he tell me don't wear my shirt, but it's another thing he tell me I can't hang out with my friends. And my mom was like, look, this is what I want you to do. She was like, next time, because I talk to everybody, social butterfly. Next time you go talk to your groups of friends, Little Miss Popular, I need you to listen to their feedback, and I need you to really not just take it to heart, but take it apart. And I want you to figure out whether or not you want to be a part of that crowd. So I thought about it. The next day, I go out. The friends that were being confrontational about my stepdad not being my father, I noticed they were like avoiding me. and you know, oh y'all, it's a bunny rabbit. There go a bunny rabbit. Okay, y'all, just sidebar, commercial break real quick. There's like, I live by like this trailer park, right? And every time we see like a rabbit or anything, I'm not saying they eating them. I'm just saying we don't never see them ever again, right? So every time there's like a bunny rabbit outside, I always tell the kids, oh look, a rabbit. Anyway, coming back, I went to go hang out, and you know, I noticed that group of friends was like avoiding me, and I would have to really put effort into talking to them, and they would not give me any feedback, or they give me very little feedback, right? So that's when I started feeling the effects of like rejection. Because like when I was younger, somebody didn't want to talk to me. It was like, okay, I just go play with these blocks over here. But then I started noticing that, you know, being social is becoming a little more complicated. So with that being said, I was like, okay, cool. You want to get down? Okay, there you go. Daughter's over here looking at the rabbits. So have fun. It's raining. Them people ain't out to go get that rabbit, but that rabbit, he's an endangered species right there. Anyway, I noticed they weren't really talking to me. My next group of friends that were like, you know, you need to talk to your mom because your dad, he tripping, you know. They were still kind of cool, but they still felt some type of way about the fact that my mom sided with my dad. And then, like, my guy friends, they sounded just like my stepdad. Some of my guy friends even like pulled me to the side and was like, listen, I don't want to be weird, but you got boobs. and I was like, what do you mean I got boobs? They were like, well, like you starting to, you get into a point where everybody can see everything. And so now I was sitting here like, I didn't think that people were thinking like that. I'm thinking we're all in the neighborhood, we're playing, we jump rope and we're doing it. Why are you looking at that? And then like a lot of my guy friends took time to be like, dudes are looking at that. They not hanging out with you because you this cool girl that play the same video game. They looking at you because, hey, you jumping, So I was like, dang, I didn't know. And then I noticed the girlfriends that I had, the female friends and stuff that I had, that felt like, my stepdad can't tell me what to do. They still had this attitude, like I was a weirdo, It mainly that I started observing them and how they move and who they hang out with. And I started seeing like nobody ever commented about the way that they dress. Nobody commented about the way they talk. They were able to just do whatever they wanted to do. They were able to just go haywire. They always wore tight and revealing clothes, stuff like that. So I was like, oh, okay. Which brings me back to my original point. And I might just need to break this down. Might just need to make this a series. Upbringing. The black fatigue thing is killing me because of the upbringing. And it's like, for me, I got picked on because I had parents who were like, you can't do this and you can't do that. I grew up in a structured environment. Like my kids, I'm here with them. I watch them. I know what they about to do. I set the house up before I go live. When they get upset or if they're not feeling good, these cameras go off. I gotta take care of my kids, right? And I'm noticing a lot of times black kids, they don't have that. And oftentimes they're taught that that's normal or that's socially acceptable. And when things happen, because things are dysfunctional, then everybody's upset about what happened to this black person. And so I'm gonna just keep it at upbringing right now. This whole narrative that the white man is the reason why your life is this, that, and the third. Like, let's say if I didn't have my parents were not so active, and I continued to dress in ways that were provocative, and that was not what I was trying to do, even though I didn't mean to. Once I'm about 25, 26 years old, and I'm still moving like this, parents never told me. Hypothetically, if they never told me, then if something happens to me, the first thing that, if it's a controversial incident, a lot of people like to run back and be like, oh yeah, that girl had a father in her life to tell her, and because of the white power structure, she didn't have this and that. And it's like, at what point do we get to, like, as black people, a point where we go, hey, I was doing something I had no business doing, and nobody had to tell me I was wrong. Just the fact that I've had so many experiences to make me feel out of place or something was up, that's enough for me to say, hey, I shouldn't be doing that. So like, I understand like the race hustlers narratives or the black power activists. I get where they're coming from, but then I just feel like as time goes by, how much time is needed before we as black people are going, okay, I've had a lot of disadvantages, but this is my life and I deal with the consequences of my own actions, So yeah, that was just an example. I mean, like, another part about upbringing too is like, a lot of your upbringing has to do with like your education, for example. So that was another thing. Now I go out with my black friends, to this day, I still get picked on for speaking proper English, right? It's like, okay, if I'm walking around And I'm a very intelligent person, but when I'm talking to people, I speak in a way that does not make sense. It's like, or maybe it's the slang terminology. Maybe the fact that I'm not up on slang. But here's the crazy thing about that. Like, yo, I'm in my 30s. I know that's still relatively young, but that's old enough to start telling children what to do. And that's old enough to tell young adults, hey, you want to watch what direction you're going in. How am I going to tell them and talk to them if I'm talking in a way that does not make sense? Like, they call it like ebonics or whatever. But I don't know, and maybe somebody can help me with this because I am familiar with the way that people pronounce their words and how they structure their sentences and how they project their thoughts through communication. I know there's a way that I guess I don't really know how black women talk. Okay, let's just put that out there. I don't know how to sound like a black woman. I don't think I sound like a Bonnie, Becky, or Susie. But at the same time, I feel like I don't know what language people are looking for black people to speak. Like, I don't know. Maybe I sound like I don't like rap music, which I don't. I don't. Maybe I sound like I don't eat pork, which I don't. But I don't really sound like a Muslim either. I don't know. It's like, okay. And I'm going to say something. This is about to be real hypocritical. When people tell black men they talk white, I can hear, like, there are black men that sound like the way that they enunciate is like a white person. And now let's go ahead and unpack that. Okay, I'll go ahead and unpack that. So here's the deal. It's some black people out here that the way that their voice sounds, like every black person knows what we mean when we talk about like the white man voice. Put your white man or your white woman voice on at a job interview or whatever. We know that, right? Like, I don't know, like there was this clip on Norbit where, Blackjack or whatever, I don't know whoever watched Norbit, but he told Norbit, Eddie Murphy, hey, Terry Crews was like, hey, I got some important people calling the company today, so when you pick up the phone, try to sound white. I understand that, but talking in a way that makes sense, like, okay, I'm gonna say it like this. The y'all means, know what I'm saying, that does not, my daughter thinks that's hilarious. That does not sound like a person who is intelligent. I'm gonna just say that. Anybody that be like, y'all mean, you know what I'm saying, you feel me? Like, that sounds like inmate talk to me. That sounds like somebody that does not read well, that cannot write well. That sounds like a person who gets angry very quickly because they can't think past their basic instincts. That's what that sounds like. Now, if a person, instead of being like, there are fillers in speech, like things like that to buy people time to figure out their thoughts. But impersonating a celebrity is not how black people talk. It's just not. So then, unfortunately, when you got these people who are being programmed in a way to think that this is socially acceptable of so-called black people, I'm like, okay, so if I'm not talking like that, the girl version, I'm like, but that's not me. Like, why would I project that? Like, that's crazy to me. Like, why would I project that, I'm a bad bee or whatever? Because I'm not. I'm just regular. I'm just ordinary. I'm just getting by, taking care of my family. That's all I'm doing. And going back to like these friends that I had, I noticed like when I was younger, it was cool. It was cool hanging out with them because we were kids. And at the end of the day, we're a representation of the people who are raising us. My parents were very structured. So Like maybe how I just did that. Very structured. Maybe black people don't say very structured. But again, you know what? Maybe I'm catching my talking white. I think I just hit a chord for myself. But anyway, yeah, my parents, they had a set of rules, and their whole thing is when you get grown, don't nobody care about. I hate to bring him up, but what's his name? Ryan Hinton. Nobody cared about his upbringing. All they cared about was he was in a stolen vehicle and allegedly had a firearm. That's all they cared about. Nobody cares about whether his mommy or daddy was there or not. Nobody cared. And that's the thing that black people need to realize. Nobody cares. Like, I know it's unfair, but nobody cares. Nobody, no other ethnic group is out here going, oh yeah, that person, it's okay for them to do something they know they ain't got no business doing because, you know, his mom was poor. Most people's moms are poor. Newsflash. Most people are freaking poor. The middle class is broke, y'all. And it's breaking even more every day. So, anyway, like, for me, I'm just feeling like, I feel like there's always been two worlds in the black community. There's been the high life and the low life for the black community. There has never been a full-on black community. And I will say the uniqueness about black people is that we are such a captivating group of people. Like, we are so influential that, you know, everybody watches what we do, right? I mean, we're a big deal. I love being black. At the same time, like, just like a rich black man can make being rich be glamorous, a poor black man can make being poor glamorous. Same with the women. So it's like a superpower that we have. And that's why we're such a talking point, because we have so much power and pull as a people. There's no denying that, right? But this idea that I guess there needs to be somebody to blame when a person doesn't want to become better. It's so easy to be complacent, and it's so easy to sit where you're comfortable. And this whole thing of saying that it's white people's fault and, you know, white people need to pay for this, that, and the third thing, it's so easy to go there, right? Because if we ever are truly honest, even me just having my spiel about my upbringing and my dad getting on me about how I dress, you know, in the black community, it's normal to be like, you ain't my daddy, you don't tell me what to do. Or because we see our mom, don't be talking to my kids. It's always an expletive, but I'm cleaning it up. Don't be talking to my kids about what they can wear. Who, you ain't did that, da 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 da. That is so normal in our community. It's disturbing as well, in my opinion. But it's like, we gotta really, as black people, we gotta really start looking at the fact that I think white guilt is running out. And I'm grateful for that, because I feel like this whole looking at white people like it's their fault is just allowing black people to be enabled to be less than what we are. We're always looking at white people to say, oh, my life is hard because of you. That person is just living life. Yeah, there are some racist white people that'll try to upset you. I've had some run-ins with some Confederate flag wavers where I live. And one thing about me is, when I look at them people, I don't even get into it with them, because I'll be like, you know, they're powerless. Like, every racist person I've ever had a run-in with, even when I was in the military and I had to deal with having a guy above my head, he was an officer, and he didn't like black people, and he used to always pull me to the side and tell me I was like the best black person out of all the other black people in the workplace. Or he'll get me to delegate things to do with other black people instead of him delegating it himself. I was like his black spokesperson or whatever. And it was a sad dynamic, because it was like, The black people that I used to go to, being in the middle between me and this officer, they used to perceive the officer as this big bad evil white man that can write you up, you can lose your job. But the whole time I was talking to this officer, I got to see this dude behind the scenes. This dude was a pushover. I got to see him amongst other officers. He was a joke. He was the lowest of the low on the totem pole. And I felt sorry for both groups, because this guy was about to get put out of the military because he wasn't making his rank, because he was a loser. This is just me being real. His PT scores weren't good. His physical fitness scores were not good. Every package he ever competed for, he's lost. He's never won an award beyond something that the entire squadron, the entire group he was with got. Him as an individual, he was a low performing person. But the thing that kept him feeling like he was somebody was being able to talk down to black people, who these same black people on the flip side looked at this guy and they never thought about the fact that he didn't perform well in the military. His career was just dragging and hanging by a thread. They looked at him like, oh, because he's white, he could do this to us, he could do that to us. They turned this man into a booger monster, and he wasn't even a pit bull with teeth. Like, he wasn't, he was so insignificant. But one thing that both of these groups had in common was they were both underperforming. They were both mediocre at best. They were both constantly complaining, not doing the work. And I noticed that the military put these two groups of people together so that they can burn out, because they're never going to think beyond the color of their skin. Let them go ahead and burn out. Take the racist white people and the racist, yes, I'm saying racist black people. Let's say the race-hating black people. Put them together. Because you know what they're going to do? They're going to do a whole lot of work. And all they going to think about is, I don't like that group of people over there. They not thinking about nothing else except for hate. And because they got that hate, they not going nowhere. Don't nobody want to be around them. Nobody want to talk to them. I remember there was this guy that came to work with us. He came from another base, and he transferred to our base or whatever. And he was Latino, right? And here we are, black and white, and we're divided in this little group. And nobody knew where to place the Latino guy. And he was uncomfortable because he was like, well, I don't know if I want to hang out with the black people because I don't have a problem with white people. So, and he used to come to me and be like, what does this mean when white people say this? Or what does it? And I don't know, I can't remember what country he was from, but they would all try to, try to figure out what side he was going to choose. And he outranked all of us, this Latino guy. He outranked all of us. And instead of him picking a side, he just went to the most productive person he could find at the time, that was me. And he picked my brain on what I was doing. And then eventually he removed me from that environment, to where most of those people who were doing things that were unethical in the workplace, eventually they were either not recommended to re-enlist or whatever. They were removed from the military. This officer, eventually he was moved to another base. I heard his career flopped, but I don't know. But the point is that the base got all the labor they could get out of these people, and then they moved on. I'm not trying to say that black people should stop coming at white people a certain way. I'm not trying to say that racism should no longer be a thing, because those things will always be. What I am saying is, for people who are like me, who are like at a fork in the road, who's kind of sitting here like, what does all this stuff really mean? From my life experience, everybody that's taking sides on this, everybody that's bitter towards another group because of their skin, they on the losing team. They gonna always be on the losing team, because all they can see is race. And as long as all they can see is race, they can't see anything else. But yeah, I guess this first part would probably be about upbringing. If I do revisit the topic, I'll probably see it from another perspective. But as always, I appreciate everybody who tuned in, and I'll catch y'all on the next live.